Is Yu-Gi-Oh new player friendly? No. Well, I already agree. But let's see what he has to say. Mr. Stevie Blunder.
So everybody has been talking about this tweet. Hey Yu-Gi-Oh! And MTG players, you could buy the Pokemon TCG Worlds Winning Deck for about $30. Join us. And every single card game player, they wanted their pound of flesh. They wanted to give their 2 cents. So if you guys don't know.
I did see this tweet. Maybe we should have talked. I was wanting to talk about it too. But if I'm not mistaken though, is he not referring to the World Deck package? You know what I mean? Like the one with the different card backs? Like, I don't think he's actually talking about, like, you could buy, like, a competitive deck for $30 in Pokemon, right? I'm pretty sure he means, like, this product, right? The thing that we talked about last time. These things. The World Championship decks. I'm pretty sure he's talking about this. And if he's talking about this, like, yeah, you could buy them. But it's not like you're buying a competitive deck that you could take to events or, I guess, like, play in locals or in tournaments, right? You can play with your friends, absolutely. This is a great product. I love this product, and I think it's great to learn the game. But I mean, there's like asterisks around this tweet. You know what I mean? It's like, but actually, you can't really, you can't compete with it or anything. Nobody knows if he's referring to the card pack or the actual competitive deck that's legit $30. But yeah, it's hard to tell like what he means by that exactly. Here, let's see. World Championship 2022 deck list. So Andre's deck, apparently, I don't know how you say his name, so sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but Andre's deck is apparently $65 US, which is pretty cheap. But I don't know, like, are these cards legal? When does Pokemon rotate? TCG Standard Rotation 2023. Standard format rotation for the 2023 Pokemon TCG Championship Series will go into effect April 14th, 2023. Okay, so we are 4 months into that. And this is World Championship 2022. So these decks, they must be outdated. Because what is Pokemon current rotation format? Okay, 23 to 24. So the rotated expansions, these sets are rotated out. Sword and Shield, Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze, Champion's Path, Vivid Voltage. So let's take a look at Andre's deck. And it looks like Astral Radiance. No. That's not it. Shining Fates, Evolving Skies. Huh. The trainer cards and the energy cards, I don't think they typically rotate out. I guess sometimes they might if they're special energy and they come in packs. But these trainer cards usually don't. Usually these are reprinted like a lot in Pokemon. So it looks like this deck is still... It says Brilliant Stars and Celebrations. Celebrations is here. Brilliant Stars is here. Astral Radiance is here. So it looks like this deck is still legal. This deck is still legal. It's really cheap. $65. That's pretty good. That's like a full price game. You could take it to your locals and own some kids. That's awesome. $63 for this one. Arceus Flying Pikachu. Sorry. Another Arceus Flying Pikachu. It does look like it's like a one deck kind of format here. But hey, I mean, what's the difference, right, between this and Yu-Gi-Oh? Palkia and Teleon. That's $34. That's cheap. That's pretty cheap. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is notoriously expensive. Yeah, it is. It is expensive, but so is Magic too. But yeah, wow. Chilling Reign, Sword and Shield. Okay, Sword and Shield did rotate out. Maybe that's why these decks are cheap, is because Sword and Shield did rotate out. I mean, it's definitely a lot cheaper than Yu-Gi-Oh! Already, it does seem to be pretty true. Alright, well, let's see.
Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Are pretty expensive card games. If you like Cashero, which is arguably the best deck right now, it's pretty expensive.
Hey, Patrick Hoban. Hey, what up? Yeah, no, it is super expensive. Look at that. First place, $450. Top 16, $583. Patrick Hoban's deck is $918. That is crazy. In Pokemon, I think a lot of the trainer supporter cards, they get reprinted like so many times, and then a lot of it is also the energy cards too, right? Now you know the pain I talk about each time TCG prices are brought up. Oh no, I'm well aware. I played TCG for about maybe 3-4 years until I quit. I am very well aware that that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very expensive. I used to spend like $300, $400 on decks all the time. It's not it's a very expensive game. And that's why I don't really play TCG anymore. It's just like, why would I spend that kind of money on this game, especially when Master Duel is out, right?
On release, this deck was easily like $1,000. Like, it's settled down a little bit now, but it's still definitely in the $500 to $600 range. And if you want to get into Magic, it's even worse. The most popular format, Modern, decks are...
Okay, Modern is most popular, but it's not the, like, standard de facto play. Like, no one is going to actually go into Magic as a new player and play in Modern. Modern format in Magic the Gathering is pretty similar to YuGiOh in the sense that it's a constructed format, and all these sets here, every one of them are legal, right? It's like the closest, most popular thing in Magic to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Evergreen format, right? Modern is very popular, but I wouldn't say it's the most popular. I'm pretty sure the most popular format in Magic, just by raw player count, I'm pretty sure it is Commander, right? And then after that, it would probably be Modern, and then after that, maybe Standard, maybe. I'm not too familiar with all the Magic formats, but Standard is definitely within the top 5. I feel like, I guess it depends on the environment, right? Who you play with. But very little people, or I feel like there's not a lot of cause to go into Modern as a new player, especially. Because it is just such a high, like, price floor. And you need old-ass cards to be very good. You need cards from 2012, right? It's from 8th edition on, essentially. Yeah, 8th edition on. When was 8th edition released? 2003. So you have 20 years of cards available in the Modern format. That's pretty close to Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic player here. Commander is far more play at every local I've played at. Then Modern for tourney nights. Commander lets you play the crossover cards, so you can play Fortnite cards on Commander. Yeah, I see. It's not like anyone's entry would actually be Modern, at least in my opinion.
Easily at minimum like $500, and this is considered a budget deck, by the way. Most decks in this format are like very expensive, and that's just because, thank you Wizards of the Coast printing policy, very epic. Ragavan Nimble Pilfer should definitely be $180 per copy. But one of the main reasons why Pokemon is able to be so cheap is mainly because Pokemon is not their main source of income. Like, Konami is kind of split between like Yu-Gi-Oh! And pachinko machines, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Still makes up like a huge portion of their revenue, and Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering is like their primary product. Like, yeah, they're owned by Hasbro. Like, most of their money is literally just like Magic the Gathering. So that's why like they print out so much product and have such an anti-aggressive, they have an extremely passive reprint policy. The secondary market isn't real. Wizards said so. Hey man, TCG player, card market, those aren't real. Please buy directly from us, by the way. $1,000 for 4 booster packs. Very epic. But this tweet basically spiraled into everyone complaining about, is Yu-Gi-Oh! Too complicated? Why is it so expensive? Magic is better. Pokemon is better. Everyone has been fucking crying on Twitter like their life depends on it. So we got Farfa.
I mean, I feel like everyone's just giving their 2 cents on it, right? But yeah.
If we stop peddling the Yu-Gi-Oh! Is too expensive for new players myth. You're a new player, you don't need the rest. There are plenty of cheap but solid archetypes and staples. No one picks up electric guitar as a hobby and starts out on a $6,000 Gibson.
What? That was Farfa's tweet? This was Farfa's take on this whole thing? Yu-Gi-Oh! Can we stop peddling the Yu-Gi-Oh! Is too expensive for new players? It's like... Oh my god, dude. It's like, if you're... Okay. So there are like 2 different types of categories of people we are talking about here, right? We're talking about like a new player coming in like as a power gamer, as someone who is interested in card games as a whole, and they're like, hey, I want to try out Yu-Gi-Oh, right? In that sense, from that person's perspective, as someone like, let's say for Rara, for example, right? It is absolutely expensive because like you want to play good decks. If you are coming from a different game and you're a power gamer, or like you're a hardcore gamer in some regard, in some other game, right? And you want to just take a chance to learn Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe you have really nice nostalgic feelings about Yu-Gi-Oh! The anime, and Master Duel now is out and it's fun, right? Now you want to play paper. It's like, it is expensive. It's absolutely super expensive. It is expensive, and those are new players too. Now, as far as casual players go, it's like, yeah, you could build a structure deck, or you could buy a structure deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! These products exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, absolutely they do. But what is the experience a new player has when they buy these structure decks? What is the typical experience that a new player has when they buy these structure decks and they go to their locals and they go to like Yu-Gi-Oh night, right? Chat, can anyone tell me like what you think would happen if someone bought a structure deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, cheap $15, $20 deck, I don't know what their prices are right now, and they go to their local game shop and play on Yu-Gi-Oh night? What would their experience be? Does anyone know? Does anyone have a guess as to what their experience would be? Getting stomped on. Yes. Out first round. Yes. Maybe they want to play like a friendly match. Maybe they get out first round. They want to play a friendly match with someone else. What do you think their experience will be? Most likely they'll fight against strong deck. Did it with Brandon, got dumpstered. Yeah. It's the silliest take, I think. Because like you're not having fun. As much as like we like to meme that Yu-Gi-Oh is a solitaire single player game, the idea of Yu-Gi-Oh is to play with another player. You can always buy like a structure deck for you and your friend, and then you could play structure deck format. That's fun. That's great. But like if you're actually going to a local game store, you're trying to interact with the actual Yu-Gi-Oh community. You're actually trying to like play with people who play this game. Your experience is totally fucked. Unless you do buy the expensive cards. And they're expensive. So Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive for new players. It is not a myth. It is absolutely like it's either expensive or it's absolutely dog shit for new players. So yeah, pick one, I guess, right? They're both bad.
Electric guitar as a hobby. It starts out on a $6,000 Gibson. I guess you're not wrong, but that's not what most people are saying. Like when you say the game is too expensive, getting a deck you can play is cheap, sure. But when you're trying to take the next step up to enter the competitive world, you're going from $50 to like $250 plus.
Exactly, right? Exactly what I said.
But yeah, Peeps is right regarding that getting a deck that's technically playable is infinitely different compared to like a competitive deck, because you could technically say like, yeah, Burning Abyss is playable, yeah, like Branded is playable. By the way, that deck sucks, by the way. And it's still like $500 for no good reason. Like there are a lot of expensive decks that are still not even that good. Like remember back then when you could say like you could smash like 3 Dino Smasher structure decks together and that would basically get you the way there? Like now that just doesn't exist. Even a deck like Salamangreat
Is he talking about like Evolzar, like Logia and stuff like that? I think that might have been a thing, but it's like I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if I ever really bought like multiple structure decks to put together a deck ever in my limited career of playing Yu-Gi-Oh IRL.
Cost about $300 to $400 if you want to build that from scratch, and that's why Master Duel exists. So here's one of like the main things that I'm not a huge fan of, and it's people saying like, oh, if you can't afford like the TCG, just go play Master Duel. And that's like a pretty unfair comparison to make, because one of these is a purely online experience where another is something where you're forced to go out and play with. It's kind of like
okay,
like the difference between the Melee versus like Ultimate debate. Like Melee, sure, you have like Slippy, but a lot of the reason why Melee is still so popular and its community is so tight is because Melee forces you to go out to like locals and associate with people like in person. Like Yu-Gi-Oh is a game where, let's be real, 99% of us play this game because we want to hang out with our friends and act in a social setting for like a couple hours with people who share like a similar interest. Like if people wanted to just play Yu-Gi-Oh, like they could just get that from Dueling Book or Master Duel. But people aren't really going to do that because the online experience is just so much different from like an IRL thing. It's kind of like why League of Legends is like so terrible to play by yourself, because you're just like sitting there isolated in this like chamber where like at least if you go to like an IRL tournament or like a locals or something like that, you can at least interact with people. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, interacting with people, meeting new friends, going for trades, like grabbing like food before or after the locals, like that's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh such like a magical experience, and as well as like a lot of other games like Melee, like I mentioned earlier. But like the price of admission to hang out with your friends is like $200 to $800 every 3 to 6 months, because you got to buy the new deck, you got to buy the new product, and by the way, you might not even like this deck, so you have to sell that deck for like a 25% loss to some vendor, and then you have to like reinvest another couple $100 into buying this deck, and then
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, what happened? This deck got banned, so now it's bad again, and then you just repeat this cycle. And it's just like a super frustrating cycle to be a part of at times.
No, he's absolutely right about the TCG experience, right? He's absolutely right about that. As far as the I guess addressing like online versus TCG or like just real life paper. It just depends on the person. I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh is popping off right now, and it's the most popular it's ever been because of Master Duel. I do think that because there's just more people playing Master Duel. The price of admission is only really applicable to TCGs. Saying just play Master Duel doesn't really apply. It doesn't really apply, and it doesn't really like do much in term for Yu-Gi-Oh. Well, now that I think about it, it probably will. It probably will, but I feel like the end result of everyone saying like, oh, let's just play Master Duel. If Yu-Gi-Oh, paper Yu-Gi-Oh is too expensive, let's just play Master Duel. The end result of that is that paper TCG just dies. But that's kind of like been the whole point I've been trying to say, right? Is that paper TCG is going to die because the game is way too complicated for one, and then over here the game is way too expensive. So that's why I do think Master Duel is Yu-Gi-Oh's feature. Now, do you miss a lot of like what makes Yu-Gi-Oh so great by playing online and not on paper? Yeah, absolutely. Right? You miss a lot of aspects in like playing an actual card game with an actual human being on the table in front of you, right? Communicating and talking and conversing and hanging out with the other people, right? There is a magical experience. I mean, I've definitely had that a lot when I grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And again, this is like my gateway drug, right? This is how I got into card games. So for sure, there is a huge element that is missing. I do like the game for what it is to a certain extent, right? I can obviously recognize that there are a lot of problems with it, but it's not the same. The issue is it's not the same, and if it doesn't change, then paper TCG is not going to do very well.
And to say that like Konami really does care about its newer players, sure, you could kind of say that. Like you guys saw the new Yu-Gi-Oh like trading.
I don't agree. I don't think I don't think Konami really cares about their new players. This stuff, whatever 2-player starter set, the budget on this and they're like them giving a about new players is so astronomically low. It's so small. They don't care. It's not something they're going to put money in, and they don't care to bring in new kids to play the game either because they're not making standard Yu-Gi-Oh anime. What's anime is that Konami is not monopolizing this opportunity to make Master Duel better by making the new player experience better. I mean, they could be, but you have to understand that these things do take time with developing in Master Duel, right? I'm sure Konami right now is crunching the numbers and they're looking at like the viewership stats of Master Duel and they're like, hey, actually, guys, I think we got something over here. I think we got something over here. There were 50,000 people at peak watching the WCS. There were 25,000 people on average watching WCS. This is one of the biggest events in Yu-Gi-Oh history. It's popping off in the biggest way it has in a long time, right? But I mean, it's just typical huge Japanese mega corporation speed of trying to adjust to these news, right? It's going to be super slow, and it's also going to be super conservative. And I feel like they're going to drop the ball. I feel like they're not going to catch the ball because they do move at a very slow pace.
Manga that's like 56 pages that you have to like set up super specifically. Like sure, like Konami's trying to make it way easier on players, but one of the big problems is that Yu-Gi-Oh is an extremely difficult card game that's just eclipsed everything because of
that 2-player deck got pushed back until January. Well, there you go.
How its mechanics have worked. Like Yu-Gi-Oh is an extremely complex game, and like just the ease of access, both in terms of learning the game and having to put aside enough money for something that may not even be like a full-time hobby, is something that's like really difficult to try.
The price of entry is super high, right? Yeah, absolutely.
And pitch to people as like an upfront cost, especially, you know, like kids or like broke college kids, which is like the main majority of like Yu-Gi-Oh's audience. I don't know, it's something you could build up over time, buy staples and core extra deck cards over the long term. To follow the guitar analogy, it's like buying amps and pedals.
Does anyone actually do that? Do you actually buy amps and pedals before you buy the actual guitar? Like, what? What? Does anyone actually do that? You're gonna just buy? I'm just gonna buy the staples and core extra deck cards, and over the long term, I'm gonna meticulously gather like all these tools. And oh, whoa, wait, one of them got banned. Oh, shit. Off, dude. I gotta sell that back off. I was hoping to play this game in like I was hoping to play this game in 6 months, but now it's pushed me back into a year. Like what? What is that? What do you mean buy the pieces and then over the long term? Like, and if you're buying your like pieces of your deck over the long term, like let's say he's saying build off a structure deck, it's still just like you're still spending like all your time just getting steamrolled, absolutely stomped as a new player. It's such a bad experience. Like you buying your staples and core extra deck cards over the long term still translates into you losing 90% of your games. 90% of your games you will still lose. Doesn't matter. Like if your deck isn't built properly in Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm sorry, you are at a huge disadvantage. Because not only are you playing with a subpar deck, you also don't really know how the game works because you're new. Right? You're new. It's not like guitar. The guitar is like a completely solo experience. It's a self-improvement thing, right? Yu-Gi-Oh is you wanting to play with other people, and you are going to like go to your local game store, bend over, and just get absolutely destroyed. No one wants to sign up for that.
Using like the amps and pedals analogy, it's sort of like starting to learn how to cook. Like if you want to be like a home chef, you don't have to buy like a $600 set of shin knives. You could go to like a kitchen supply store and you could spend like $500 and you could get everything you'll need for the rest of your life. But that is all you will ever need, and everything else is just marginal upgrades for you. In Yu-Gi-Oh, like sure, there are budget options, but those budget options is like trying to compare like an aluminum foil pan to like one that's made out of like solid stainless steel. Like yeah, technically one is cheaper, but the other one is so much better in terms of like quality and its lifespan, in terms of like how long is this card going to be good, relative to something like Dark Hole maybe being like slightly playable for like 3 minutes and you spent like $5 on a playset. That's like $5 that you just like punted down the drain. And even so with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not like a buy once cry once scenario where you're just like, all right, I just bought my Kurikaras, like I'm gonna be set for life, I can use this in everything in the same way.
No way. No way. Can you like Kurikaras are just a card that I'm using just now with Kashtira. It's been out for a while now in terms of Master Duel, and it's just like I'm only using it just now, and even now I'm like not even sure if I want to use it. I took it out of my deck. It's like there are formats where it works, and there's a lot of formats where it doesn't.
You could be like, okay, I just spent like $200 on like a chef knife, and like now we're chilling. Like no, because like in reality, that card isn't always going to be good for every single format. Like look at like Kurikara, where it's like had like a huge up and then it had a huge dip and now it's like back up again. And then you don't know if you should invest in it now or you have to get it later because some deck might abuse it in the future. There's just so many things.
Does anyone actually think like new players are looking at these price charts and they're like, oh, it's a dip, it's a dip, it's a dip. I gotta get the staple. I gotta get a playset right now. I gotta do it right now. It's like.
With Yu-Gi-Oh, that's a perpetual upkeep of costs, where even if you tell someone like, yeah, like sure, if you buy Ash Blossoms now, like you won't have to in the future. Even if you buy Ash Blossoms now, for 6 months, they're just going to be like a waste of money because maybe you're just not playing a deck that needs Ash Blossom, or maybe you're playing like a combo deck. Like maybe you're just not playing a deck that needs Ash Blossom, or maybe Ash Blossom is just like bad within the format. Like are you really going to try to tell like new players that like the Yu-Gi-Oh fucking stock market is something that's like easy and accessible for like the normal person to like wrap their head around and comprehend as like...
See, in order for you to play the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, you need to go to this site here, TCG Player. You need to look at this little chart here, okay? Buy the dips, okay? Okay, Johnny, buy the dips, Johnny. Buy the dips. When the staple cards, I'm going to give you a list, okay? I'm going to write them down. Max C, okay. Ash Blossom, okay. Max C is not legal in TCG. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. Ash Blossom, okay. Kurikara, Divin Kar, Incarnate, okay, Gamma Seal, okay, whatever like staple cards XYZ in TCG. Now, Johnny, look at all these cards, and you're gonna check every day, okay? You're gonna check every day. You're gonna buy the dips, and then in about 6 months or so, I think you'll have a playable deck. I think you'll be good. I think you'll be good, Johnny.
I have to constantly be keeping up with market trends to even like afford to play this game at a semi-competitive level. Pokemon.
Why not just buy in stocks at that point?
Though you can buy a starter deck and get it online 1-to-1. That's so good. Yeah, like Pokemon, literally again. Like
that is really good, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that, but in Pokemon, if you buy any of the products, like starter decks or whatever, structure decks or whatever, you literally get an online code to put it into that Pokemon online trading card game. And the Pokemon online trading card game is kind of whatever, but it's still there, and it's still like you still have that deck. I actually did that when trying to learn Pokemon. I actually bought like a starter deck that I researched that it was doing it was pretty good, or at least a decent start, right? Just so that I could buy the packs and then play it online as well. I did do that, and it's crazy. That's really, really cool. I think that's really, really cool.
Pokemon does that though. You can buy a starter deck and get it online 1-to-1. That's so good. Yeah, like Pokemon, literally again, like one of the main reasons they could do this is because the Pokemon like trading card game doesn't make up like a significant portion of their revenue, so they could just do whatever the they want, and they could just keep throwing bones to their players in terms of like relatively cheap competitive product. Like the Mew VMAX set is literally like $30. You can get like a world's winning deck list. It's crazy. This whole
I don't really agree with that, because the way a business works, it's not like, okay, Konami is a big company, right? Konami is a big company. They own multiple IPs. It's not just Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like I can't think of it off the top of my head. What are Konami products, man? What are Konami games, right? What are Konami games? They have Metal Gear Solid, right? Okay. They have Bomberman. They have Power Pros. This is huge in Japan, right? They have Castlevania. They have other products, right? And it's not like Castlevania or Metal Gear Solid or Super Crazy Rhythm Battle. It's not like any of their successes are tied to Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, what am I trying to say here, right? I'm trying to say, like, it even goes down to a further level. Like, the profit from Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is not fueling Master Duel. The profit of like Legacy of the Duelist is not fueling Master Duel. These are still segmented projects. These are still segmented teams that have to bid for a budget within the umbrella of their parent company, Konami. They still have to prove their worth, and they have a designed budget that they have to operate within the confines of to earn money and like basically have more ability to push out more cool things. And so like the thing with Pokemon TCG, right? It's not like because Pokemon as a game, as a video game, or Pokemon as a franchise, or Pokemon with toys, it's not like that success is directly tied to how well Pokemon TCG does. Pokemon TCG does well because Pokemon TCG does well. And that's it. It's not like because other things do well within the confines of Pokemon that Pokemon TCG does well, right? That's just not how that works. You still, especially as like a Japanese business, you put an initial investment, upfront investment, right, to these projects, right? You allot them a budget, and you say, hey, you're going to use X amount of dollars to try and make this really good. And if you have a very good report by the end of this fiscal year, then we'll give you more money, right? That's how that works. That's not like just because they're selling toys or they're selling the video games doesn't mean Pokemon TCG has to do well. Does that make sense? They make more money off of pachinko. They killed a lot of the video game development. Yeah, and they probably use the money that they make off of pachinko to develop more pachinko machines, right? It just makes sense to take the profits of one business and use that profit to further better that business, not to spread the wealth and put it to other projects. Why would you put money earned from one project into another project, right? There are very few cases where you would want to do that, because the thing is, it's that the thing that's doing well, you're just going to put more money into that. because it's doing well and it's going to do better with more money, right? You don't just spread the wealth. It's not like Konami is one person, right? It's a company with multiple projects, multiple teams. It's just investing back into the known cash cow. Exactly. You don't get to be where Pokemon TCG is because Pokemon like video games sell well. Just that's not how it works. Master Duel feels a lot like a throwaway project that turned out really well. It's just it's like it was low budget, right? What they had initially coming out from the store, just compare like what Master Duel came out with at the start to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel, right? Is it Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel? Yeah. Compare like what they had out in the store to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel. What they had as assets to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel. Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel was insane, the amount of budget that went into this game. Master Duel, they didn't think Master Duel would do well, but it's a welcome surprise. They are going to notice that Master Duel is doing well, and they are going to try and catapult off of that.
VMAX set is literally like $30. You can get like a world's winning deck list. It's crazy. This whole thing also led into the debate where, one, people started taking the piss on being Yu-Gi-Oh! Is too hard, and the second thing is which game is better, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic? Spoiler alerts, it's honestly probably Magic the Gathering. Even though it does have its complexities, it's still an extremely easy game to pick up and learn. Like, I literally taught Rosalind how to play like Modern and Commander in like a week. But let's get to the first one where everyone is starting to complain about, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh!
I mean, obviously it's personal preference, but I mean, I honestly do think Magic is better. It was low budget, but Master Duel was advertised as a huge deal. Konami even promised esports during the ad campaigns before we even saw the game. Yeah, but they didn't do it, right? But like, it took them a while to do it, right?
Bad game because too hard. So Rarin, my homeboy, Magic did a great job at explaining the game's mechanics, showcased how the game is played, and translates over to a real games. I didn't need a guide to watch a YouTube video or anything. That's how a game should introduce players. And that's true.
Yep.
Like Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, those games are extremely easy to learn, like on a fundamental level. Because the game mechanics, like from the start, were designed to be able to be just like picked up and played. But like Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh my god. Have you tried explaining Yu-Gi-Oh? And like, even so, if you explain Yu-Gi-Oh, like you could teach someone all the summoning mechanics and like the phases, there's still like a bunch of dumb, intricate, like stupid shit that they also have to learn regarding like phases, regarding like missing the timing, which isn't really a thing, but like it's still funny to say, as well as the
missing the timing, chain blocking, right? Segok, right? There's a lot to Yu-Gi-Oh! To learn. And you know, guess what? In Master Duel, let's say you fell in love with Yu-Gi-Oh! Through Master Duel somehow, some way, and you try and translate that to paper. Good luck. Good luck. Master Duel obfuscates so many details from the player. It is incredibly harder to play on paper because you actually have to be aware of a lot of things, and you are the one calling it out. You have to be the one to notice these things are occurring or that something isn't happening right, because you are the arbiter of the game alongside your opponent, and then comes the judge if there is a judge, right? So it is incredibly hard. It is incredibly hard to translate what you know from Master Duel to paper because it's not the same. That's why when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh, right? What me and my friends did was we didn't play decks on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. We did not play decks on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro or Dev Pro. That's what we actually, occasionally we logged on was Dev Pro. We never used Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro or Dev Pro. If we wanted to practice for a tournament, we had to use Dueling Network. We had to use Dueling Network, or the modern day equivalent is Dueling Book, because you have to learn how to play these cards manually. And you have to learn how to communicate what you're doing to your opponent manually, right? It's still not the same exact experience, but it's still the closest you can get to real life. When Raran said he understood the damage step in his video, I said out loud to my screen, "No, you don't." No, yep. Your cards in your hand don't glow when you can activate them? Nope.
the fact that like there are so many other decks in Yu-Gi-Oh that all play completely wildly different from each other, as well as so many different cards that you have to explain why people are playing. Like you have to explain why Ash Blossom is like a really good card, because like, oh, because deck search. So like, why is searching good? Because it has consistency. And like Special Lane from the deck is really good. And then you have to explain like why Maxi is good. And then you have to explain why Call by the Grave is like,
dude, it's so funny, right? The very first thing when I collabed with like Rena that I noticed was like she wasn't playing max copies of Maxi. And I was like, why? But why would you do that? Why would you not play max copies of the best card in this game, right? But it makes sense though. Like people just don't know. People don't understand, especially as a new player. It's like, why is drawing cards so important in Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, it's because it's the only resource you have to manage, right? So of course drawing cards is really good because there's no mana, there's no stops, right? It's something that there are so many details just from a card game. Card games themselves are already complicated, right? But putting that into the context of Yu-Gi-Oh, it's astronomically more. Sims are good for learning because you can only do legal moves in them, but paper places far more onus on the player in terms of awareness. Yeah, because you could do illegal moves, whether you intend to or you don't intend to.
A good anti-tech, and they have to explain why like Crossout is also a good anti-tech. Where like in Magic the Gathering, like most decks, although they do still play separately, you could still get the general idea like very immediately. Like Mono Green Tron is just a deck where it's just like, oh, you just have a bunch of ramp and then you just use that mana to cast like big spells. Burn is just like, oh, you just have like a bunch of little guys and they just like attack your face and they just try and kill you as fast as possible. Like Magic is like pretty simple, but like Kashtira is like, okay, so this deck zone locks you. Tearlament is a deck that takes like 10 minutes to combo off. And by the way, they could do this on your turn too. Like, I'm not saying that Magic doesn't have this shit. I mean, we did have like Second Breakfast, but I mean like most decks in like of Pokemon and Magic and Hearthstone are pretty simple to wrap your head around, and Yu-Gi-Oh is just, the game is so lost the plot that they have to keep introducing completely differently like out of the box archetypes, which if you're a veteran player is like super cool to get an idea of, but like if you look at it from like a new player perspective, you're like, what the fuck is Vanadium supposed to be? And then the second thing
and yeah, for sure, right? With Magic the Gathering, the thing about Magic the Gathering is it's so big. It's so big and they have so many different formats too. It's like you can get in, you're very likely to get into it just because on like how popular it is. And you're able to find like a play group that is relatively within your level, right? And in Magic the Gathering Arena, there's just so many players, right? So like because there are so many people, it's not hard for a new player to be matched with someone within their skill level or relatively close. And also, in Magic, you can't just go off. And in Magic, there is a lot of variance. You could get mana screwed. That's what it's called. You could get mana screwed in Magic the Gathering, right? So you don't win every game just because you know more than your opponent. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, the game is super consistent. It is super consistent. That's why I say Mulligan Yu-Gi-Oh would be the absolute worst thing. Everything that you can do is very, very consistent. And there are searchers, there are cards that draw you so many cards, right? In Yu-Gi-Oh, it is very, very much of, it is such a consistent game that it boils down, it mitigates the luck and the RNG that you need to win, right? There is not that much luck involved with Yu-Gi-Oh compared to other card games, right? It is a knowledge game, and it's also, did you draw the out game, right? So there is a luck element, but it's because of how consistent it is, the emphasis is more on the knowledge and knowing how to play the game. And that's where you get these ridiculous skill gaps, and that's where you see a lot of new players get ostracized.
If you look at it from like a new player perspective, you're like, what the fuck is Vanadium supposed to be? And then the second thing that everyone was complaining about is like, which game is better? And like everyone was like, oh, like Pokemon's better because it's like more simple, and like, oh, there's like Turn Zero Eradicator in Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh is bad. It's my number one game for a reason. I just think the Pokemon TCG outclasses it in certain categories that I'd love to see Yu-Gi-Oh improve on. And that's basically like the number one thing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what he said. Pokemon TCG does things better than Yu-Gi-Oh, but Yu-Gi-Oh does some things better than Pokemon TCG, or at least it caters to a different crowd, right?
That should be taken away from this. Like, everyone should just like shut up about your stupid shitty little opinion and just understand that like for the most part, these games do very specific things way better than others. These games, although they are trading card games, are wildly different in what they are trying to provide, and they do way better at certain things than other games do. Like Pokemon is very much an extremely simple game where it is just like player A, player B, player A, player B. It's sort of like rock, paper, scissors, or like tic-tac-toe and like that sort of scenario. And that appeals to like a lot of players because of the simplicity and like how easy and simple the game is. I think that's like a really good thing, as well as, you know, the ease of access in terms of cost and like learning the game. I think Magic the Gathering does a pretty good mid-ground where, although the game can be like 10 trillion fucking dollars to invest in, it does have a very good ease of access in terms of like learning the game, as well as an extremely high skill ceiling that doesn't get like too convoluted. And I think like Yu-Gi-Oh, although it also sucks dick and it also costs like 10 trillion dollars, appeals to players who want a game that's like, heh, I'm not like the other kid. I watch Rick and Morty, bro. Like, I think...
Wait, he's right. Wait, he's right. That's an analogy for sure. I love it, Rick and Morty. Damn, I feel seen. Rick and Morty is fun. It's fine. It's not like, but it's like the kids that say I love Rick and Morty, and they kind of like make that part of their personality. That is where it kind of like gets a little cringe, you know?
Yu-Gi-Oh appeals to like people who want to be able to be like a hyper fast combo game that's extremely convoluted, and it's like you're spinning like 50 different plates at once. And I think Yu-Gi-Oh does succeed in that. And do I think it's like new player accessible? No, but I do think that it is a great game for people who are able to get extremely hyper fixated on something and are willing to dedicate the time and money to get good at a game, which once you do actually put in like the dozens of hours to learn this game at a baseline level, actually does open up like a lot of doors. I like the idea of playing Yu-Gi-Oh more than actually playing it. Yeah, I relate to that a lot. Anyways, that's my 2 cents on the Yu-Gi-Oh discussion. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, that's gonna be it for that's gonna be it for this time.
Very cool video. I enjoyed his take. That was really nice. I'm gonna go ahead and share with you Mr. Stevie Blunder. I think he is also another content creator that likes to give a lot of his takes, and I couldn't really find anything I disagreed with. I pretty much agreed with everything he had to say about that. But as far as that goes, right, I feel like with Yu-Gi-Oh, right, I did want to say something. I did want to say something about this. Hold up.
Let me know what you guys think. And
I did want to say something about this. Hold up.
Who are which?
Right. Okay. So like, with regards to like Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And like the complexity of Yu-Gi-Oh, I honestly don't think there's that much complexity on a deeper level. Because you have to think about like just what is Yu-Gi-Oh? Like making the combos and doing the combos and how they work, and like this card links to that card, like yes, that is complex, okay? But once you learn the combos and once you learn the plays, right, the game boils down. It kind of dilutes itself and becomes a very, very simple in terms of, did I draw the out? Did I win the coin flip? Did I have my starter combo pieces, right? And for me, like with Sky Strikers, it's like, did I draw enough board breakers? Did I open enough board breakers? Did I open enough answers, right? And who am I fighting against, right? It's not necessarily like that complex, right? When you play and you talk about games like Hearthstone or like Magic, right? I don't really know too much about Pokemon, but Hearthstone or Magic, there are very interesting decisions of like, what card do I play with this amount of mana, right? And what would actually give me the best shot at winning the game moving forward, right? What leads me down a path where there are more worlds that I win? And there are a lot of interesting decisions with that in those games that I don't really see a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh! I really don't. Like, there's just not... You see it with decks like Tearlaments, because Tearlaments does have, like... Especially now with how downgraded it is in Master Duel, you do see that kind of decision-making in Tearlaments because it is luck dependent. Like, what do you mill, right? Right? Do I activate Kelbeck? Do I activate Agito? Who am I playing against, right? What are the chances? Can I outplay them with this mill, right? There are a lot of those interesting decisions in certain decks with Yu-Gi-Oh, right? But there are not that many interesting decisions in general with Yu-Gi-Oh. a lot of it just kind of comes down to and boils down to like, can I do my wombo combo or not? Like, can I stop them or not? It's not that complex in my opinion. I do think with Hearthstone and I do think with Magic, you make a lot of plays to mitigate RNG, especially with regards to Hearthstone. You make plays to mitigate RNG. You make plays to lead yourself to the higher number of outcomes that win you the game. And I do think that is more interesting, personally. Sounds a bit like it's about understanding the enemy's game plan and how to counter it. It depends. It's like with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's kind of like a fighting game where depending on the character you pick, you are essentially choosing your own difficulty, right? When I'm playing Sky Strikers, I'm choosing and I'm cranking my difficulty pretty high, right? I'm not playing an absolutely weak deck that has to work super hard to win, but it does have to work relatively hard compared to like Telements or compared to like Kashtira, right? They have to have certain hurdles that they have to leap over, right? So it's like based off the character, based off the archetype you pick, you are essentially choosing your own difficulty. It's the decks and deck building that's nuanced and not the mechanics. The mechanics just define the game and make sure it moves itself along. It is, but it's also like, I feel like with Yu-Gi-Oh, deck building is also not that crazy because it's so archetypical, because it's so tribal, right? When you pick your character, when you pick your archetype, half your deck is pretty much made for you. Whereas in something like Hearthstone or Magic, you're basically picking maybe 2 or 3 cards that these are your win conditions, and how do I build an entire deck around them? And how do I build an entire strategy around them and maybe have alternate winning conditions, right? And it's because the general pool of cards is huge. And that's just not a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! In fact, the #1 complaint in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is I wish Baron de Fleur wasn't such a generic card. I wish Maxi and Ash Blossom wasn't such a generic card, right? That's like the #1 complaint, but it's like, that's why it kind of confused me when I thought about it, but it makes sense in the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't really want too many generic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's just not what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. Yu-Gi-Oh! It's an archetypical tribal game. It's all about archetypes. And so having like free range, free cards everywhere that belong to everyone kind of dilutes the game, especially when those cards are very powerful, right? Like, because power creep is so prevalent in Yu-Gi-Oh, you see them everywhere. It wasn't design complex in the first place. It really wasn't, Daddy Red. It really wasn't. But you see what happened with Konami? What they decided to do was, oh my god, we're selling so many cards. We're making so much money. This is crazy. Oh, well, I mean, but how do we make sure that we keep selling cards? How do we make sure that we keep selling? The new cards have to be good. The new cards have to be better. We have to keep improving the cards. And they just kept going. They just kept going and going. And the power level went up and up and up. And now you have this freak show of a game that now Konami is like, guys, I think we made a mistake. And I don't think we could come back from it. We tried coming back from it. That didn't work out. We had to put it back. But I think we made a mistake. I think we need to try something different, guys. And that's what this is. But yeah, great video. Stevie Blunder. Is Yu-Gi-Oh! New player friendly? Nope, probably not. But yeah, definitely give that a like and subscribe to him if you haven't already.